we're going to look at 3 different replays at 3 different MMRs of people playing Arc Warden. This first one is Herald 5, then we'll be looking at an Ancient player, and finally an Immortal. So starting off, he has this really bizarre build of Magnetic Field level 1 and a Boots of Speed. He also placed an Observer Ward on the enemy high ground where they could have possibly seen him and dewarded it if they were a little bit better. But it's unlikely that they'll deward this in Herald, and either way with this build he's ended up missing every single last hit in the first creep wave. Regardless of what rank you are or what hero, you really need to get stats in lane, and this Boots of Speed isn't much advantage. All it really allows you to do with Boots of Speed is to run away from Razor's Link a little bit faster. But in this lane, what you'll end up seeing is Razor takes a lot of tower hits. Notice now the next creep wave here, I think it is, where he ends up aggroing the tower, takes more tower hits. Now, when you see stuff like this happening, you understand that the enemy player doesn't understand the tower aggro properly in the game, and he's taking more tower hits. So you need to exploit this and keep harassing him back. When you're not pressured to, like, if you don't have to keep hitting the creeps, you should just be attacking the enemy and try and get him down onto lower health and maybe even get him a kill on them. And constantly this Razor keeps going down onto low health. The tower is literally his enemy. So this Arc Warden gets kind of free time to just last hit and last hit behind his tower. But still, after 3 minutes, he only has 3 last hits. 1 last hit per minute isn't very good, and this skill build is probably lowering his kill potential too. You really want to get your spark rate leveled up to help you get kills. But again, you see Razor's like the tower is his enemy, but either way, this Arc Warden just never wants to go back and fight him. Look at the health difference, and the 3 tangos are still available here that he doesn't use. So now Razor's really low health, and he should go back to the fountain or buy a salve and fly it out to him, but instead he comes back to lane and decides to try and fight Arc Warden here. And Arc Warden throws a flux onto him. He's still scared to fight the Razor, and yes, he is getting his damage all drained, but Razor ends up dying to the creeps and the flux damage over time. So it's kind of stupid, but it's basically a free lane for this Arc Warden, but based on what the Razor is doing. Yet the Arc Warden still only has 5 last hits at almost 5 minutes now. 5 last hits at 5 minutes. Disaster. Oh. If the player was a little bit better, he probably could have killed this Razor at least 3 times in this lane, and you'd snowball really fast, and it helps you get a Midas quicker. Is he going to have more than 10 last hits? He does. He has 11 last hits. Is he going to man up here? He's getting his damage drained here from Razor. Razor is still really low, and if you would spark rate, you can do magic damage back to him and get it killed there really easily. All you have to do is hit 1 spark rate, throw it behind the tower, but instead he's focusing on trying to last hit here, which he has 12 last hits at 11 minutes, so he's improving, which is not a big improvement. 13 last hits. He got more last hits in that creep wave than he did in the space of like a 2-minute period throughout the rest of the game. Oh, 16! Oh, wow. This Javelin's making a big difference in his ability to last it. So the Tempest double is now like hitting the tower on mid lane. And Arc Warden's there, but he ruptured the creep. What? No way. And then he doesn't walk out with a silence, does he? He does. Good man. He puts down the magnetic field and it's like, Bloodseekers, I'm out. I ruptured the creep. Back to the fountain. No. Oh no. Like, how do you rupture a creep? He accidentally clicked. They're not even close together. Come on. Like, how'd you misclick onto the creep? Watch. Oh no. No. Oh no. Oh. Oh. Now he's got a Mulnir. And the enemy's pushing the tower. He doesn't use the magnetic field on the tower, and their glyph wasn't available. So Axe goes in, and Arc Warden is now last hitting creeps here. And instead of moving his camera up to see what's happening, he instead uses Tempest double and then moves up. And you end up seeing that it didn't really matter if he used any of his spells or not, because his teammates picked up the kills there anyway. So he uses Tempest double and he teleports it top. He's done this now a couple of times, but this is really good play to do because it allows you to farm the map where your teammates are not getting the farm anyways. And now pushing into the tower, he teleports his own hero top as well. But this is kind of weird because the 3 enemy heroes and the enemy team are not showing on the map. This is kind of a risky position, and his awareness of how far he can push himself in terms of like split pushing like this is not very good. But he manages to have a shadow amulet which allows him to hide here. They use dust, they don't find him. What? CK is like waiting, he knows he's there. How long is he gonna wait? His Shadow Fiend's coming now as well. So he has teleport, like a TP scroll ready, but he was waiting for CK to go away, which is pretty nice, and he ends up being able to teleport back to the fountain. And being aware of the fact that he has a separate cooldown on his main teleport and his boot of travel. And you see that he buys the TP scroll again so that he can use it a little bit later. That's really good awareness that he knows of this mechanic. I wasn't expecting a hurled player to know that. So Axe goes in and clinks here and finds... Is he going to get him? He does. He gets a kill here. And Warden sees all this. This is Warden's player perspective. So he gets to see every single thing that's going on here. CK is coming. CK doesn't throw the stun first and decides to right click. So Warden gets to escape. If that CK was a little bit better, he would have got a stun off there. But what you notice is that in this team fight, Warden is not really contributing anything. And he's hesitating a lot whether to join the fight or not. And when he broke the invis there, he started like auto-attacking Bloodseeker. And did he even get one attack onto Razor? I don't know, maybe one attack he did. But either way, his team win that fight for him, and he was just kind of an onlooker more than anything. So this Warden really loves split pushing, and he does it a lot. Something that he could do a little bit better is maybe use a spark ray and put them down in places to get vision, because they do give a small AoE vision around them, and you can see stuff that's pushing in before you're doing stuff. Especially when you're going high ground, throw a spark ray, say up on the high ground up here before you walk up there blatantly. There could literally be 4 or 5 heroes up there. You can see 2 or 3 of them on the minimap, but either way, he's not super aware of what's going on. And CK just comes from behind, and 2 people are teleporting in, and he manages to just Shadow Blade and run away, which is pretty stupid, and you really wouldn't get away with that a lot of the time. Especially, you might get away with it, let's say 7 out of 10 times in hurled. Like, hurled players do buy dust, but you really can't just rely on your Shadow Blade to give you invulnerability. It might work until maybe you get the Crusader or Archon, but eventually you're just gonna have to keep, like, you can't just do plays like this. He does it again, and now this time he uses Shadow Blade, and someone bought dust. Who would have thought, right? And if you do that a bunch of times where you Shadow Blade and run away, it might work for maybe 4 or 5 times, and eventually people are just going to buy dust. And it's not really a fight that you might want to take, but because they have a Riki, they kind of can just initiate here with the axe as well on the front line. And he uses a Flux here on Bloodseeker, right clicks him once, and then for the rest of the fight he just like ignores everything and goes back last hit and creeps. So still there's a fight going on here, and he's still not contributing to it. Now he's starting to attack, and you see how much damage they're doing. The Shadow Fiend has a lot of damage because of armor reduction, but either way he's not really a huge contributor to fights, and does a lot of this like watching other people win the fights for him. So now he teleports mid after that fight to defend against this solo Crystal Maiden and Frostbite and ulti from CM. He also gets silenced here, and he doesn't know what to do here, and he can easily just purge that Frostbite by using the Manta, and even the silence afterwards he could have purged that too. So he bought this boost of travel level 2, but he's never teleported onto a hero directly. He's always teleporting onto creeps. So it's kind of questionable of what he's really doing with a boost of travel level 2. And again, he doesn't understand that his Manta can purge the silence there. And even when you use the Manta, it means that you have to attack the hero again. Your aggro to the hero with auto attacks ends, so that's something that can help you against clinks as well, because he's to click on your hero again a second time. Now he's like looking for times to try and get kills with his teammates. He's bought an Aghanims, and here's a really good example of how he doesn't utilize his items very well. He uses his boots of travel onto creeps, but he has boots of travel level 2, which he can directly use on Earthshaker. Yet the creep ends up just dying here to CM's ulti, and he could have went bottom. And he still has boots of travel level 2 on his main hero, yet he's instead deciding to push mid, and yes, it is helping you win the game, but if in certain scenarios there, if he wanted to get the kill on Crystal Maiden, he could have easily. And even now, if you look what's happening with Earthshaker, he's still chasing after CM here, and the Arc Warden's not aware of this, and he's just focusing on killing the creeps on mid. Even though the mid lane is already dead, you are getting backdoor protection, but top lane is where you need to be at to like objectively win the game. So really this game is over at this point, and it's really just like usage of items, not playing aggressive enough, and he just plays too passive as well, and his just coordination in team fights, he plays just way too far back and just as an onlooker so many of the times. So now we're looking at an Ancient 1 Arc Warden, and this time he's playing a lot more aggressive at the start of the laning stage, harassing with right clicks and not really focusing on creeps that much. And you see that he has a lot better stats, which allows him to potentially last it better and also do better harass. This flux is also really good too for doing harass, and using his mana early on is really good against OD, because OD is going to just drain all your mana throughout the laning stage. But you end up seeing that he focused so much on harass there, he only got one last hit. His last hitting under the tower was really bad, and that's the same pace at what the Herald player is last hitting at. So as an Ancient player, you should be expected to do significantly better than that. So you really need to focus a lot better on the first two creep waves if you were this Arc Warden. So OD's after using his orb now to try and last it creeps, but Arc Warden uses that as an advantage, a window of opportunity to go and play aggressive here. He throws down the spark rates in positions where he thinks OD is going to go next. It probably would have been maybe good to put it up on the stairs, because that's kind of the easiest place to follow after OD, and he doesn't manage to get like a kill here, but OD probably salved up now and is coming back to go after him again. Now he's also hit level 7 at this point, and he's leveled up his shield, or the magnetic field, so that ends up being good enough to help him survive. OD has to take tower hits, and it's relatively stupid that he's going back in aggressive like this. Maybe OD might be able to catch him, but either way he goes back and tries up. So he's picked up a haste rune, he comes bottom trying to get a kill. He didn't really get a kill there, and his teammates are going back playing defensively now, which is kind of like bad coordination with his teammates. Not really anything he can do about that. But now OD has used his orb to try and farm creeps in mid lane. This ends up being a really good opportunity to go and play aggressive like this, and he puts down the spark rates, which gets hit by the creep there. And maybe if you put one of the spark rates up further away behind, like up on top of the stairs, OD would have walked back into it, but he never ended up walking back into it. But either way, that's like pretty good trade of harass here, and OD heals back up, either with a salve most likely. And here he's just after hitting level 7 and leveled up magnetic field right at that point, and just allows him to survive there. And OD hasn't seen the magnetic field out yet, so that was a pretty good first usage of magnetic field there. So now he's after walking back to mid lane and teleporting top, and he ends up getting banished because he teleported right in the middle of the river. So OD gets a really easy banish here, and he goes and tries and plays aggressive again, yet the whole creep wave is there, and OD is standing really close to the creep wave, which is a pretty smart thing to do. And playing aggressive like this is kind of a little bit stupid here. And does he manage to just kill both of the Tempest Double and Arc Warden himself? Yes, he does. So that's a really stupid play, and there's no reason to go and play aggressive there, especially once you made the mistake of getting banished in the middle of the lane while you were teleporting somewhere else. So now, because he used his teleport just before he died trying to teleport top, he has to walk all the way back to lane. This is more experience loss and more advantage towards OD to gain further ahead, and it's not really what you want to happen. And with Arc Warden, you really want to focus on your farm in the laning stage, because otherwise if you fall behind, your Midas ends up getting slower, and 2.4k net worth at 10 minutes is not very good whatsoever. But he's used his 2 magnetic fields here, and he now doesn't really have any defensive capability, and he puts down this spark rate at a really weird position that Hoodie isn't going to go, so he ends up like really poorly underestimating OD's damage here and just dies as a result, and letting OD pull even further ahead. So Arc Warden is now headed bottom to farm creeps like this, and OD manages to find him now again, and he uses his Tempest Double using Flux. It's pretty good that he's microing pretty well here, but OD is quite good against his hero, and he also counters him here. And Arc Warden has died now 3 times in quick succession. Warden's using his Tempest Double to kill the Ancients, and he never really uses Tempest Double to go and push out waves, especially when there's no one standing in the waves or OD. Like random Omni Slash, but anyways, he's back to the jungle, and he's literally doing this over and over again. They're not really benefiting anything here, but the enemy has vision of him right here at the moment if you have a quick look at the mini map. But the OD ends up coming here now in a second. So OD throws down the banish because of that vision, and he puts down really reactively to use his defensive spells straight at the start. And Phoenix is really the one that's turning this around, and he puts down a second orb, which I guess luckily also hit the egg, so they couldn't really kill it, and they were pretty aware that they weren't able to kill the egg quickly, so they just back off. So there's 2 players showing on mid lane here. You can see OD and Lifestealer showing here, and they also have much better vision and a lot more wards. And you end up seeing Arc Warden has moved up here really aggressively just so that he can farm the lane so his teammates won't take the creeps. He didn't have to push up so far here to get that creep wave kill, and he could be farming much further back at this point and waiting for the creep wave to come in here. Instead, OD manages to blink in here, take a banish, and Pudge misses the hook. Okay, and then OD tries to attack him and gets dueled. His teammates do a really good counter play onto this, and his magnetic field, the second one, was kind of unnecessary. I guess it's just a misclick or whatever, but he's also not getting usage of Midas onto the first creeps that were there either, and his Phoenix and teammates were just in a good position near him. Arc Warden has picked up a Shadow Blade, and he's farming on mid lane, and there ends up being a fight that breaks out mid, and he's relatively quick to see that what's happening here and moves his camera there, and he very quickly teleports to the shrine and Shadow Blades to run down. He sees Pudge is behind, and the egg is being focused here, but what he could have done here was to guarantee, even though the egg did get off, but you can walk into this spot up here on the cliff and put a magnetic field down. It would have been a shorter range to get that, but instead he just decides to walk around a long way, so it didn't really make any impact in this fight, but it could have in other games. But focusing Pudge here is not really a priority target, and he ends up getting hooked, and he's pretty much just going to get carb control down and killed very easily. If you look at his items that he currently has in his inventory in his backpack, the quarterstaff gives you significantly better stats. It's 10 attack speed and 10 damage, whereas the Wraith Band only gives you 5 attack speed and 6 agility, which is essentially 6 damage. So swapping those items out would mean a little bit of a difference in the fight. Phoenix gets focused first here, and what I'll tell you note in this fight here is Arc Warden's current position. So notice where he's standing right now, and he's pretty far back. He also misses the magnetic field here, and he uses the Tempest Double. He could have used the Tempest Double, the second one, put down a magnetic field over the egg, but he ended up missing it. Maybe it's because of the camera angle he missed it. But notice how now he's moved forward like this for very little reason whatsoever. He can attack from this position over here, and Shadow Shaman gets a really easy hex off on him in this position, and Shadow Shaman even gets a shackle off. So in this fight he didn't really get a huge amount done here, and there's a lot of stuff that he could have done, especially the magnetic field placement would have made a pretty biggest difference in that fight. And even some stuff here, are they even going to win the fight overall? Nope. Now he's still in the jungle at 40 minutes into the game. This one of the first times that he sent his Tempest Double bottom, and he's just because he bought the Boots of Travel. But now he's just back to jungling. It's like he's never going to be out of the jungle. He's like Tarzan. Now Juggernaut's focusing the Slardar. They get the pick up really easily here, and they're all here now on top. But if we look at Arc Warden's position, he's after teleporting into the middle of the fight onto creeps, and this offers up a really good chance now for OD to get a decent ulti off here. And he does use his magnetic field, but he can Shadow Blade and run away. So this is kind of a relatively weird fight, and he's focusing Pudge here again. We saw earlier when he focused Pudge, he had no chance of killing him. Yet he's not really able to do anything this fight. He's getting hexed here. He's going to die behind the tower. He's running. He Shadow Blades and runs away. So Ancient might not be much better than Hurl if you can get away with Shadow Blade like that every time. So now the enemy is just sieging their top lane, and Arc Warden can't really do much here when he's low health and can't really play too aggressive, and it's kind of stupid that he's not going back to heal up. into the fountain. Even buying a salve to heal up quicker and also get the fountain regen is relatively stupid. And what ends up happening is Shaman split pushes the Arc Warden and comes and pushes bottom with the Aghanim. So now he's sending his Tempest double in. And in first spell he uses his Flux. What he should be using first is Magnetic Field onto the buildings, but he never ends up using that. Now his main hero is back in the fountain healing up, but look at his health. He's not even, what's he, 75% health exactly at this point. Now again, the first spell he uses his Magnetic Field, then Shadowblade runs in, Orchids, right clicks him, and then this is kind of like the wrong way that you do your combo. You really need to focus on getting your Magnetic Field starting out, and even though you're trying to output as much damage as possible, your buildings are just going to die if you don't focus them as Serpent Wards in that position. But either way now, because the enemy team is just literally faster than him and how he's moving around the map, he just ends up dying here, and his teammates died with no buyback. Well, Juggernaut has buyback, but they pretty much just lost the game now off of that, and it's kind of really underwhelming how he played in the laning stage. He didn't really do that much pressure anywhere else on the rest of the map, and he sat in the jungle too long and not really contributing anything to his team. Now we're looking at an Immortal ranked 2500 Arc Warden, and he's also Master tier. He's got 4 Slippers of Agility, which might be a little bit overkill, but he places down a Spark Rate on level 1 on the enemy high ground. This forces Ursa to now have to stay on the low ground, and he uses a second Spark Rate here, and notice how he uses a right click plus the Spark Rate damage at the same time to get the last hit. That's a really good way of guaranteeing a last hit, because the creeps don't have any magical resistance at the start of the game. And they do have 10% physical resistance based on their armor. So that means that literally no hero in the game can counterplay your Spark Rate plus a right click attack. Even the Spark Rate on its own on level 1 is literally close to impossible to deny. When he's not going to kill a creep, he's always using his right clicks in his actions to attack Ursa. This ends up making it much harder for Ursa to constantly stay in lane, and even though he's had 5 tangos, 2 shared and 3 tangos that he bought himself, he's struggling to keep up and regen in lane, and he's almost dead here, but he just manages to get away here. He still focuses on getting some attacks out onto Ursa here, and he uses a Flux on him and just keeps harassing him here, and it doesn't really make a huge difference here to Ursa. And all that happens now is that Ursa can't run up to his high ground, and he needs to go play safe. So instead Ursa decides to go aggressive here, trying to get some denies, a little bit too greedy, and he can't go play defensive now up onto his own high ground. So Arc Warden just chases him down the river and pretty simply gets to cut off Ursa in his path. So that's a really good way of punishing some really small element of greed from this Ursa. So you can see at the top of the lane up here, he's placing the Spark Rates, and this gives him some vision so that if someone comes to rotate like Pudge, he can see it a little bit sooner. And you'll end up seeing what's really happening here is Ursa's hiding in the trees coming here, and Pudge is even smoked. You can see the smoke of the siege effect, and he's running through mid lane. So this Arc Warden was pretty on point with what was going to happen next, and ends up scaring off the enemy and ends up making them like pretty much poor coordination by the enemy. But either way, based on like the knowledge of the fact that the enemy's trying to gank him a lot, he goes and farms in a much more safer location and plays a lot more defensive while farming. And he didn't do that, so he ended up like dying mid. But anyways, so he's now picked up a Midas here before 10 minutes, and what you end up noticing with his Tempest double, he always uses up all of the mana before he like dies, tries to use all of the spells. But meanwhile Ursa's farming in mid lane, then he smokes and goes Roche. Now Arc Warden is not aware of this. Well, he could have seen it if he was looking at his Spark Rates there, and his team pinged it out to his team, but he never did. He goes into Roche then, but Arc Warden doesn't really want to contest any of this. Even the line is here. Anyone could have, if they were looking at the Spark Rates, they could have seen that the Ursa activated one of them. But instead what happens is Ursa ends up killing Roshan and staying like full health for most of it with this Mask of Madness. But even if Arc Warden was trying to contest this, Pudge was in a really good position. He's waiting here on the high ground, so Arc Warden wouldn't have been able to really contest that on his own anyways. Now right now the Aegis just ends, and this ends up being a really good time to take a fight. Almost perfect if anything. Now the Chrono is down, and the fact that Arc Warden was just in position for this is really good as well, because you pretty much maximize the damage and effectiveness of the use of Chrono there. So now here's the second Chrono, and Arc Warden's in position again to follow up on this. He does walk into the Chrono here, but either way, he ends up just about saving this Void for a little bit by using a magnetic field in front of the Ursa, so he has to commit a little bit further, and this guarantees that the Ursa ends up dying, which is the highest network player on the enemy team. But either way, this Arc Warden is kind of out farming everyone, and the Monkey King is snowballing really hard. Now the Ember Spirit was trying to be really cheeky there and jumped away with low health, but the Arc Warden manages to catch him here with Spark Ray, which is the equivalent of like power shotting someone with like Wind Ranger to finish him off. So that was just a really good prediction, and pretty much almost like a skill shot if you want to put it that way. Now the enemy's heading into the dire jungle, and Arc Warden puts the Tempest double in front to focus Ursa and gets his main hero to run back into a more defensive position. He uses the magnetic field here, and the Monkey King is pretty smart to run into the magnetic field to dodge the attacks or evade them pretty much. But at Ancient you probably wouldn't see people like this Monkey King utilizing the magnetic field like that. So that ends up being a really good play that you end up seeing Immortal players will actively do, and probably do it more regularly here. Now the Arc Warden really hasn't done a huge amount to contribute to the fight here, and he puts down a Spark Rate here which prevents the Ember walking up the stairs. Now the Ember now has to put down Spirit Remnant, and the Monkey King predicts his location. He's gonna go and gets the kill. So at the moment this Monkey King is pretty much doing a lot of carrying for this team, but the Arc Wardens capitalize upon the lead that they have a huge amount, and straight away decides to go push bottom on his own, which is a little bit questionable, because if you look at Pudge, he could pretty much kill Arc Warden on his own, and based on his current position there's a couple of creeps there. So if Axe blinks on him at this point, he's pretty much dead, but he decides to commit for a tower push anyway. So notice what he did with the spark rates there, even though Pudge is coming here now. Well, I want to go back like a little bit. So notice he puts the first spark rate down here behind the tower. This is to get vision of Pudge potentially hiding in the trees, and he used a second spark rate over here, which is to get more vision here where Pudge also could be. So this is a really smart thing that you end up seeing a lot of players in Immortal doing, which is trying to get vision with the rate spark, especially in places where people can teleport into the tower which they can't see. But Pudge ends up like pretty easily picking him off here. Picked up a blink dagger now, and he brings the Tempest double in here to go aggressive and contest these ancient stacks. This is a really good strategy to do, make it harder for the enemy, and also taking use of this aggressive vision that his team have. Now at this point you can see the Ursa's here, Axes here, and both of them have a blink dagger. They also have an Ember Spirit that could potentially jump on you. Now instead he decides to go here and play aggressive and send with the creeps, and Pudge is waiting in the trees trying to hook him. He even has vision of Pudge here, and Arc Warden's still standing here aggressively. Now he kind of tunnel vision there on Pudge, so now Ursa allows to go in on Arc Warden here. He does this little cheeky move of putting the magnetic field down, but Ursa manages to walk into the magnetic field and kill him. Now that play might seem kind of bad that he gave away 500 gold, but he also lost 50 gold effectively as well, because he used a teleport skull rather than his boots of travel. Now if you notice his talents here, he's gone plus 125 attack speed and flux cast range. One of the reasons why attack range might be good this game is they're going for Roshan again while his teammates have gotten picked off, and Arc Warden goes in first with Trine Protector's ulti, and he's able to focus them here, and the Mjolnir is bouncing back and forth, and he has the Mjolnir active used on his hero. Now he didn't use the Eternal Blade at all, which he could have done, but it doesn't really make much of a difference here. So he ends up being able to blink in again and use the magnetic field on Monkey King here and use it on himself, and able to kill both Pudge and Ursa here. And Ursa is probably going to end up dying again a second time, you see. Yeah, he got Chronoed here while invis with the Glimmer Cape, and Arc Warden gets to have that attack range, so the talent, so now he can guarantee that he stays outside of Chrono. Now his Void is getting focused, he throws out an E-Blade onto the Axe, pretty much a nice crowd control there, and he uses Tempest double, blinks in and uses Magnetic Field. Now he could have used Magnetic Field from his main hero, but he never ended up doing that, and a lot of the reason why he doesn't do that throughout nearly all of the game, is because the magnetic field is your defensive ability, and you need to be able to save that for when someone goes on to your main hero yourself, so you don't die. But either way, this ends up being a pretty impressive match for this Arc Warden, but he also did have kind of a stompy game as well. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to see more Dota content like this, make sure you subscribe.